And so let's jump into verse 15. He starts off there and he says this. He says, the Son is the image of the invisible God. Now, the word image there is literally the word for icon. It's like, hey, you see the swoosh, you know it's Nike. You see the golden arches, you know it's McDonald's, right? You see the ears, you know it's Disney. This equals that. And so when it says that Jesus is the image of the invisible God, what he's saying is, hey, think of it as an icon. Jesus is all that God the Father is all that God the Spirit is. It's the Trinity, one essence, three distinct persons. That's the way we view it. And so basically, if you want to know who the Father is, look at Jesus. Jesus says this in John chapter 9. He says, anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. Oh man, show us who the Father is. We want to know what God's like. I mean, he's invisible. We want him to become visible. That's what Jesus did. He came and showed the invisible in the visible realm. That's what the amazing thing is about Jesus. Hebrews chapter 1 says it like this. It says this. It says in the very beginning of Hebrews 1, starting off of the book, it says, in ancient times, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets. That's the Old Testament prophets, right? That's a fourth of the Bible. God spoke through the prophets in many ways, in many times and in various ways. And then there's a contrast. But in these last days, he has spoken to us through his Son. Now, I want you to understand, the first idea there is God spoke, and he kept speaking, and he kept speaking, and he kept speaking in various ways and at different times. But the word after the word but in the original language is but in these last days he has spoken. He has finally spoken his last word. It is complete. There is no further thing to say. God may be speaking still, but he is not speaking anything different, because everything he could have spoken, everything that he is, all of his being has been spoken, and it's been spoken, it's been verbalized, it's been put into his Son. And he goes on in verse 3, and this is amazing. Look at what it says in Hebrews 1:3. And it says this, the Son is the what? Radiance of God's glory. Look at this. The Mountain of Transfiguration. Jesus, everything turns as white as it could possibly be. And you see the very essence of God's glory. You want to know how glorious and phenomenal and supreme God the Father is? You look at the Son and all that he did in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I would have been there in person if I could have, wouldn't you? But we can't be, but we can read it and we can understand it. And one day our hope will be fulfilled and we will see him. But it says that he is the radiance of God's glory. And it says this, he is the exact representation of God's being. And then in Philippians, if you can either flip over there or look at it on the screen, it's amazing what he says there. He's talking about Jesus again in chapter 2. What has happened, the context of chapter 2 is it's talking about humility. It says we need to have the attitude that Jesus had when he was on the earth, and that is that he had humility toward people. He chose other people above himself. He became a servant and went low so that other people could go high. He says that's the attitude we need to have, is that we prefer others over ourselves, and we're not selfish, but we're giving to other people. And then it says in verse 6 in chapter 2 of Philippians, it says this. It says, but being in very nature God, and that word nature literally means essence. That word literally means all of who God is. All that God is, Jesus is. Being in very nature God, he, that's Jesus, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped. Literally in one translation, and this is an accurate translation, it says did not consider that something to be used for his own advantage. See, because what Jesus did was he was God, the essence of God, and he came and he said, I'm going to humble myself, but not for my benefit, but for others' benefit, and I'm going to show them what the exact representation of the Father is. So he is the exact image.